I know. Now in movies, it's like, yeah, my parents are divorced, whatever. Everyone's are. It's like it's like a non-issue.
We're gonna normalize this. It's fine.
Yeah.
Welcome to this very special Christmas edition of Draft. I'm your host, Daniel Prentice, and once again, and as always, I am joined by my dear, dear friend, Preston Thompson. Preston, how are you doing, and what are you drinking this week, my friend?
I'm doing great, Dan. I'm in the Christmas spirit. I've been in the Christmas spirit since like November 1st or so. That's usually how it goes for me. I'm doing great. I'm drinking bourbon again, even though you shamed me for being a little too samesies. But I have not managed to get to the local breweries, and I don't want to drink the Michelob Ultras that are just sitting in the back of my fridge. So the expensive bourbon it is.
Well, now it's festive. Now it's appropriate. So I'm on board with it. I hated it last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess now when you're listening to this. Absolutely love it this week. And we are thrilled to be joined once again. Maybe the first time technically. I don't know how this actually works, because last time she was a guest, she was Katie Reynolds. Now, as a guest, she is Katie Geer. So, Katie, congratulations on getting married. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing, and what are you drinking tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm a whole new person. Same wealth of useless movie knowledge to bring up any time that you only want to talk about movies. It's my one unending bucket of facts in an area I can talk about forever. And I've brought along a pretty, I would say, normal blonde ale for my tastes. I'm normally a wine gal. I think I brought rosé last time, but I think, like Preston, this is what we had in the fridge, and so this is what I'm drinking. So not very festive, but I'll make it work.
That's okay. It's 2020. It's the year of making do, and I make up for you anyway, Katie. I am drinking spiked eggnog. It doesn't get any more Christmassy than that.
Wow.
Fantastic.
So I am bringing it home. Yeah. I have this. You guys can maybe see this. Obviously, the podcast listeners cannot see it, but it's this very Christmassy glass with mistletoe on it.
Oh my goodness!
So I couldn't be any more Christmassy right now.
Nothing like heavy whipping cream and alcohol with a little spice.
Yeah, eggnog is definitely worse for you than having whipping cream. There's more stuff in it that makes it even worse for you. But that's what Christmas is all about. Mm-hmm. But without further ado, Katie touched on it a little bit, Preston, with her movie knowledge references there. But what are we drafting tonight?
Tonight, we are drafting the perfect Christmas movie lineup. This is greatly anticipated. I'm a big Christmas movie guy. I watch the same bundle of 5 or 6 every holiday season. I know we're going to dig a little deeper down the list tonight, so I'm super excited. But I think there's something we have to get out of the way very quickly before it immediately becomes a debate, because the people are already drafting their tweets. When I was looking at lists of 62 best Christmas movies of all time, whatever it is, 3 movies kept coming up that I personally would not consider Christmas movies. So I'm going to go from probably easiest to agree on to most difficult. One was Little Women, which I actually just watched today for the first time because I wanted to be extra sure it's not a Christmas movie. It's really not a Christmas movie. It's a great movie.
I haven't seen it,
not
but
a
I wouldn't
Christmas
have thought
movie.
so.
It's on the Rotten Tomatoes list and several others of one of the best Christmas. Christmas exists for 10 seconds on screen.
I agree with you here. I was expecting to debate more. I also saw it on some lists. As someone who's seen the new Little Women 3 or 4 times, could probably quote parts of that movie directly, would have never put that in a Christmas list.
Right.
That feels like a movie that has some memorable Christmas scenes, but you don't become a Christmas movie by just writing one Christmas scene really well. That just means you're doing a good job at making a movie.
Yeah. Great movie, though. Loved it. We just finished it literally 20 minutes ago. It was great. Number 2 that I kept seeing is Batman Returns.
No.
Not a Christmas movie.
Ridiculous.
And then, of course, the third that's on everybody's mind is Die Hard.
Yeah.
Now, I fall firmly into the camp of I do not think Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I'm more than willing to explain why, but I want to figure out where the rest of the show is on this particular subject.
I want to hear from Katie on this. Katie, what do you think?
I completely agree. I don't think that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. That said, I am someone that loves tradition. I have argued this several times with other people. If something becomes so ingrained in a Christmas tradition for a wide enough group of people, you start to get to a place where you say, is it Christmas just because everyone does it? Bunnies have nothing to do with Easter, but now they do. I mean, I think that I could argue the other side of this, but is it in my draft list? No, 100% not.
Yeah, this is the famous one. People feel very strongly that it is a Christmas movie. My first instinct, and I have to say, I've never actually sat down and watched all of Die Hard all the way through. I've seen it in it's like one of those movies I've seen in bits and pieces on TV. So I've collectively seen it all, but not in one viewing. And I also don't think of it as a Christmas movie. But I was having a debate with some other friends about what makes a Christmas movie. And one thing that my brain told me to do was look and see the soundtrack of the movie, because that would tell me if it's a Christmas movie or not. And to be fair, it's pretty much all Christmas songs. So it's they do kind of lean into the Christmas feeling of the movie in that way, at the very least.
People who say that Die Hard is a Christmas movie is like people who say that chess is a sport. You just want that popular tag. You want the tag of saying it's got the cachet of being a Christmas movie. Aren't you satisfied with just being a famous action movie? Can't that be enough?
Yeah.
Let Die Hard just be a good movie on its own. But it's no, it's also a Christmas movie, which is a famous other thing. Chess is not a sport. It can just be a really, really, really good and famous game. But people want to make it a sport for that extra popularity.
Here's a question. If you take Christmas out of Die Hard, what fundamentally changes about Die Hard's plot, character development, big story beats? I would argue not a whole lot. I think that movie can exist on most other holidays. All the movies on my list have themes of family, personal growth, forgiveness, the giving of gifts. They go a little bit deeper than just they take place on the day. You know?
Yeah, I'm with you. I also think a big thing of what makes a Christmas movie is that you watch it at Christmas time. Mm-hmm. Die Hard is a summer blockbuster feeling action movie that you can watch, at any time. If it's on.
But to Katie's point, there are groups now. There are groups now that make it a tradition.
Oh yeah, there are people that watch it at Christmas time. But I think the average person would watch Die Hard literally any time of year, and probably not watch the vast majority of these other movies that will end up being picked at any other time other than Christmas. So it seems like we're all agreed that we're not going to take Die Hard here. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do we all agree about that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I had an argument on one more that may or may not be on my list. And I think this one's a little more complicated.
Okay.
But The Nightmare Before Christmas. Christmas is in the name. And Christmas is an element of the story. Is that a Halloween movie? Or is it a Christmas movie? Or is it both?
I'm inclined to think both, to be honest. But if I had to pick one, I would say Halloween.
Yeah, just because you can't watch it without having nightmares? No, that makes sense to me.
No, not for that reason.
I do think that it can count as both, and it can be a Christmas movie. And I think it's because it truly crosses over both holidays almost equally. Because the premise is, he's starting in Halloween, but he wants to be Santa and have that Christmas part. And it's not as great as if he's, the king of Halloween and he really wants to take over St. Patrick's Day. That doesn't become a cult classic. I think you need to have that tension there. So I do think it's both.
I mean, Santa Claus is in it. Though, so
yeah. This argument may impact some of our movies as we go through. I realize there's some things on my draft list I was thinking of as Christmas movies that, with the rubric it seems like we all agree with, I may have some issues with.
We can take those up
later
when we get there. Yeah, there's a lot of gray area in this. There's not an exact definition, but that's fine. I think the big one is Die Hard. So
the original sin of this podcast is thinking Michael Jordan is a fictional sports athlete. So I think everything past that is debatable, and we're fine.
That canonically, that was not the first pick of the show because we didn't release that episode first. Yeah. But in the history of the show, that was the first pick ever made. So right off the bat,
and it was all downhill.
Right into that, not even gray area really. Gray area would be very kind. But let's get to this.
Your Apps reviews immediately are tanked. They're like, I thought this was a great draft podcast, but Michael Michael Jordan's not fictional. I cannot in good conscience give this more than 4 stars.
We honestly should have just stuck to it and tried to convince people that Michael Jordan wasn't real, and he was just a story that you were told growing up, and he was this great hero.
We're probably at an age like where you could convince people of that.
I think so.
Like people that are like 12 years old today.
If you'd only seen Space Jam, you don't know that that's a real person.
But hey, how about we get to this Christmas movie draft? Now, let's get right into it. Let's get into the nitty-gritty and decide what are Christmas movies and what are the best ones. Our draft order is Katie, number 1, then myself, number 2, and then Preston, number 3. And of course, just as like we always do, it's a snake draft, so the order will inverse on odd rounds, or even rounds, excuse me. Katie, why don't you go ahead, get us started. What is the number 1 Christmas movie of the Christmas movie draft?
I feel so privileged to be first round yet again on this podcast, and I'm going to take what I believe to be the obvious pick here, the number 1 overall, and that is absolutely It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, yeah.
This is just one of the best movies of all time.
Period.
It is the movie we watch every Christmas, and I watch the grown men in my family weep silently and proudly, sitting there just filled with the emotion of family love and redemption and forgiveness. And it's just a fantastic movie. This is probably one of the Christmas movies. Christmas movies are known for being rewatched a lot. One of the movies I've seen absolutely the most times. It's wonderful. Easy first round draft pick.
This has to be the movie that if it didn't exist, none of the other ones would be here, right? Like it like made the genre. I listen to Nat King Cole's Christmas album every year, and it feels the same way. Like it feels like the genesis
Christmas.
of Christmas music. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, not my personal favorite, but it makes sense if it's like the Christmas movie. It's what you watch.
Yeah. I think It's a Wonderful Life is straight up my favorite movie. Like it's that or Good Will Hunting. Those are my top 2. I mean, I cry like every year. I cry more and more, like an absolute baby at the end. When spoiler alert, when Harry toasts to George, to my brother George, the richest man in town. I'm gonna cry like just talking about it right now.
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, I mean it's a absolutely beautiful movie. It is the most Christmas movie. It's the perfect number 1 pick. I'm devastated that you took it, Katie, but you did the right thing here. I actually want to say that this friend group that I was talking with about Die Hard earlier, one person said that It's a Wonderful Life is not actually a Christmas movie because it doesn't need Christmas, which is like technically kind of true, but the whole thing is about the spirit of Christmas and like loved ones supporting each other, which is what Christmas is all about. So I was shocked because it is the most Christmas movie. Like when you say Christmas movie, it's the first one you think of. It's a Wonderful Life.
That is where I think the if you took Christmas out, would it be the same paradox starts to break down, where you could say, yeah, you could make that movie. Is it better though? No. Where I think you start to have to ask those questions. I also heard those doubts last year, and then in my annual rewatch, realizing that the movie ends on a Christmas tree, I was like, okay,
yeah, I mean,
this is a Christmas movie.
100% without a doubt a Christmas movie.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, absolutely. No debate.
Sometimes it's just like a gut thing. Like, well, what are the ingredients? Shut up. You just know it when you see it, and you watch that thing, and it just defines the spirit of Christmas. Like, no, go away.
Yeah.
What's that famous quote from the Supreme Court about you can't define pornography, but you know it when you see it? It's the same with a Christmas movie.
Yeah, pornography and
Christmas are just like
basically
porn,
the same.
You know it when you see it. Okay, well, I'm upset, but I'm thrilled for Katie getting the best Christmas movie. I don't know how to follow that up. There's one that is my number 2. But I feel like Preston won't take it, but I can't predict it. Preston's always a wild card in drafts like this.
It's because I'm bad.
It's because I'm bad at it. Number 2. No, you have your favorite things, and I love that about you. But it's like hard to predict what they're going to be sometimes.
I get that.
So I am going to go with The Santa Claus. This is a childhood favorite of mine. It's another one that I watch every single year. Tim Allen is great in it, and it's. Like, there's definitely no denying that this one is a Christmas movie. It's about a guy becoming Santa Claus, and it's so rewatchable. Like I said, I watch it every single year. it wouldn't be Christmas season for me without being able to watch Santa Claus. So I have to take it to make sure I get it number 2.
Santa Claus is one of those few movies, and I think that we are, and maybe it's just me in this group, of the last generation where there are movies you saw 100 times because you only owned 4 VHS tapes, and so that's what you had to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And the Santa Claus is one of those movies for us. I don't know why we owned it. We weren't a big Tim Allen family, have never seen Home Improvement, but I've seen Santa Claus a million times. And that was like the pattern to me. That was like the bar was set. That was maybe my first Christmas movie.
Yeah, maybe mine too,
Santa
actually.
Claus.
I think probably for me, yeah. It's weird. I'm starting to now think about the early VHSs of my life that probably shaped my life more than I can imagine. Because I had Batman with Michael Keaton that I watched all the time, and then The Patriot, which really messed me up when I was a little kid. And then finally just round it all up with Passion of the Christ, and you got a whole boiled of messed up childhood there.
My goodness. Yeah,
we had the Disney classics too, but those were the only non-animated VHSs I can remember, like actually watching a bunch. Yeah,
that's a lot to unpack. I think we should save it for another drafted. I want to say that for years, like to an embarrassing point in my life, I thought Claus in Santa Claus the person was spelled with an E at the end because of this movie. As in,
is it not?
No. It's just
No,
C-L-A-U-S.
I get the pun of the title, but Santa Claus doesn't have an E at the end of it?
No. See?
What?
Preston learned later than I did.
I don't know. Listen.
Arguably one of the most present words for like 2 months of the year, every year of your life.
Listen.
Granted, there are a lot of puns around that word, but still.
Yeah, okay. Fine. I thought this was a safe space.
Preston.
I thought I could open up, but no, it's okay.
No, this is the least safe space.
It's true. That's a good pick. I like it.
I also think Santa Claus is also a rare early to mid 90s movie about divorced dads going to extreme lengths to be around their kids, which is also a really micro generation of movies.
Oh yeah.
Same thing with like Mrs. Doubtfire. Right as kind of that divorce peak was hitting, and it was like, here are all the dads doing crazy things, becoming Santa Claus, becoming old grannies, just to be with their kids. I'm not sure if Jingle All the Way.
I've never thought about it. Yeah, and there's another little scene Tim Allen movie that we also loved as kids called Jungle to Jungle, which is basically the same thing. He like finds out he has a kid.
Same with Liar Liar.
Yeah. And what's the Chevy Chase movie with Jonathan Taylor Thomas where he like joins the whatever weird Boy Scouts? I don't even know what that one's called.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, wow. I've never thought about that, Katie. A whole genre of film, forgotten to time.
I know. Now in movies, it's like, yeah, my parents are divorced, whatever. Everyone's are. It's like it's like a non-issue.
We're going to normalize this. It's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a future draft. Best divorced dads trying to win the affection of their children movies. Liar Liar is another one.
Best stepdads.
Call me. I'm ready.
Okay, Preston. We just discovered an absolute bombshell. You don't know how to spell Santa Claus. But what are you taking with your first 2 picks of the Christmas movie draft?
Well, I'm actually feeling pretty good because I think when I was making my list of all the tiers like I do, I decided to just not care about nostalgia. I'll care about personal nostalgia, but not like overall general population, which I know is dangerous around Christmas time because a lot of the movies you watch, you go to because they're nostalgic, right? But the 3 ones I have in S tier are just my 3 favorite Christmas movies, and they're all still there. So I feel very good about that. Okay. So I am thrilled at round 1, pick 3, to be taking Elf. Absolutely thrilled. I feel like that's a steal.
Damn it.
I feel like that's a steal. I think Elf is like what you said about It's a Wonderful Life. Like, it's not just one of your favorite Christmas movies, might be one of your favorite movies. I think that is Elf for me. I think it is a near perfect movie. Yeah. If you remove the weird scene where he walks in on her in the shower, I think it becomes a perfect movie. Great. Not great, but everything else about it, fantastic. Love that movie. It should not work, but it's so fantastic.
Yeah,
I think it's the most recent Christmas movie to consistently make it into Christmas movie canon. And I know Hallmark and Lifetime and Netflix is trying really, really hard to get their foot in that door. But I think Elf is the most recent movie to actually make it into that next echelon where
it's
can
like
be
already a
considered at the
classic.
same level. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that old, but it's already a classic. And parts of it, like, feel old. They feel, like, out of time, and I'm sure that's intentional and very well accomplished. But yeah, you're right. It shouldn't be a classic because it came out in, what, like 2003? But it is.
No, it absolutely is. And I don't even like Will Ferrell very much. Absolutely adore Elf. It's fantastic. This was my debate internally. Was I knew you were going to take Elf, and I thought you probably weren't going to take the Santa Claus. I should have taken Elf, but yeah, I mean, this is a great pick. Elf, maybe it's like we're just the right age, but I don't. My parents love Elf too. Like it's definitely in the annual rotation. Great pick.
Yeah, it was first round for me as well, but I knew taking It's a Wonderful Life, I wasn't going to get my other first round picks, and I kind of made peace with that. I think Elf also has an incredible score, which I think is a pretty common theme on some of the top Christmas movies I know I have on my list, are that they have amazing soundtracks, incredible scores, and that one is just fantastic.
Yeah, very good.
Strong agree. Two of the songs from the score are in my Christmas song playlist, so.
Mine too. I'm sure they're probably the same too, but yeah, definitely. So for my next pick here, struggling between the other two in my S tier, I'm going to take one that I suppose there might be some debate over whether or not this is a Christmas movie. I definitely land on the side of it absolutely is. And I'm going to take Home Alone.
100% a Christmas movie.
Okay, thank you. I've heard arguments from other people, but no, I think that goes well beyond just having Christmas be the day where it happens to actually having the right themes in place. And again, another absolute knockout classic that I'm super excited to get.
Yeah, that's a great selection as well.
That was also in my first round. I think those were now my entire top three. Basically, first round has been selected. I have listened to another podcast about Home Alone recently where they surfaced a rumor that the dad in Home Alone was actually in the Chicago Mafia, and that's how he was able to afford to fly the whole family to Paris. I mean, that has to be $100,000 to fly all of them, and how they get through the O'Hare Airport in 15 minutes.
I will say this: he does not pay for them to fly to Paris. It's said in the movie his brother who lives in Paris flies the whole family out. So it's the brother who has all. He is just stupidly wealthy.
I think the three of us are of an age where we're so used to an economic downturn that we're like, how could you possibly afford these plane tickets? That's our first thought when we watch Home Alone. Yeah,
it's a lot.
Or his brother's also in the same mafia.
Yeah, his brother is the prime minister of France.
The house that they live in is easily a $million home too. It went on sale I think a couple years ago, so it was some outrageous amount. So definitely a lot of money in the McAllister family for sure.
Yes.
Though I do want to highlight for Home Alone, this is the one that I was thinking of that breaks down our rules around Christmas. And the reason for that is I have Home Alone 3 on my list and fairly high. And it was only as we started recording, as we were talking about it, did I realize I don't think Home Alone 3 is set in Christmas. But it is one of my favorite Christmas movies. It's not about Christmas. It's not set in Christmas. So part of my draft order has been completely wrecked by the fact that Home Alone 3 proves that you could set Home Alone in another time and have it be a comparable movie. Burglars are trying to get in and a kid is home alone.
I don't know that I've seen Home Alone 3. I've seen
you
one
have.
and two.
It's a different kid.
You have.
It's the different kid, right, Katie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The brown-haired kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you know what? It's kind of similar but a little different. I'm with Katie. I think it's really good. Another one of those VHSs I had as a kid.
Same. That's why I know it so well. And it was only as we started I went, "Oh no." My draft's about to get rough. I put a non-Christmas movie, a straight up non-Christmas movie in my draft list.
I mean, you could have slid it past me. I would have had no idea. Okay. This is tough. Elf and Home Alone were definitely my next two picks. Preston said that there's a third one out there. I'm not sure what it is. I feel like there's not a movie that's as obvious as those, but maybe
The reason I held off on it is because it's a little personal to me and maybe my family, so I'm figuring it might not be so universal. So I'm hoping it maybe comes back. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I have some outrageous blind spot too when it comes to like the classic Christmas movies. I think I'm gonna have to go for an old-timey feel movie that's nearly on par with It's a Wonderful Life in terms of like classic old-timey Christmas feel, and that is Miracle on 34th Street. Not the crappy remake, the original Miracle on 34th Street. It just, I mean, what a beautiful, perfect Christmas movie. It's so good and cheerful, and I don't know, just exactly what you're looking for. And I love that you have to watch it in black and white to get the old timey feel. Like, don't give me the updated colorized version crap. I don't want that. I want just the original Miracle on 34th Street.
Mm-hmm. Very similar to It's a Wonderful Life, like in the vibe it gives you.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I have not rewatched that in a very long time, so I didn't have it high enough on my draft list. I knew it was a classic. It felt like I'd be cheating a little bit to draft something like that when I'm not. I don't know why. It's just one you see on the lists often, you know.
Right there with you, yeah.
But it's got that strong nostalgia, which is a key part of Christmas.
Yeah, I would have taken it just because I feel like somebody else would have taken it. It is on my list, but it's not super high for me either. It's not a staple.
Both of you guys do yourself a favor and watch it this year.
Okay.
Seriously, it's like it should be in like the annual watching, I think.
Gotcha.
If not every year, every other year at least.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. Okay, Katie, you got back-to-back picks here.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for reminding me how drafts work. You would think I would understand, but I think about drafts about twice a year, and it's when I'm on this podcast, so I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you.
This back-to-back comes at an opportune time for me as I'm looking at my list, because I was really trying to decide between two movies that I consider quite high on the list, quite high draft picks, and I'm so glad I get to take these off the board right away. And the first one is, of course, A Christmas Story.
Ooh.
Classic movie, so funny. It stands up to the test of time. It's really a cult classic. It wasn't a big hit when it came out, and over the years it's now considered one of the top movies from '83. Just your good old-fashioned 1940s Midwest Christmas, but such a funny movie. And I think that's an obvious pick, and I'm glad that I got it.
Yeah, that was pretty high for me. I love that movie. Also a great, like, I think it was like TBS who now just plays it for 24 consecutive hours when Christmas comes around. So you can just, like, I think TBS understands, like, listen, nobody's probably watching TV today, but put this on in the background for that guy who doesn't really get along with anybody else, or the significant other that was brought for the first time. They can just sit on the couch and have a couple laughs with The Christmas Story. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I like this one too.
This may be the opinion that, like, officially ruins me for all future drafts. I'm not a huge fan of A Christmas Story. I don't know what it is. Like, I think
that's
parents, okay. My parents kind of like missed it generationally, I think. So like it didn't resonate with them. So I didn't watch it growing up. It wasn't one of the movies in our repertoire. And I don't know. I mean, I don't dislike it. Like when it's on TV, you know, I'll sit down and watch it. But it's not one that I ever make an effort to watch intentionally, if that makes sense. I can't connect or relate to any of the characters in it, really.
I think that's the magic of the movie, though, and what's happened on cable is I don't know if many people ever intentionally watch A Christmas Story.
It's true. It happens to them.
Everyone's accidentally seen A Christmas Story every year for the past 20, 40 years that it's been on.
Yeah,
and I think that's why you could probably still say more about what happens in A Christmas Story without having intentionally watched it in years. Just because
it's a lot of iconic scenes for sure.
Yeah. Yes. I'm feeling great about that pick. That's a real classic. But
Katie, man, what a start for Katie. It's a Wonderful Life and A Christmas Story. I mean, I feel like she's probably already won this draft.
That's strong.
Those two picks.
That's strong. Now, the back end is going to make or break people here. Some really absurd stuff's going to come up.
Maybe so.
And
Very strong start, though.
Yeah, I've had to stay more mainstream on the first half of this draft, but let me tell you, my favorite Christmas movies are the weird ones. And so I actually can't wait for the back end of the draft because I think that's where I'm going to shine. But next up, I'm staying mainstream as long as I've got this snake draft style, and I'm going with Love Actually. Easy next pick. I've got to have something a little bit more modern. I think the next classic that came in just before Elf, before we kind of shut everything down, Love Actually is an obvious rewatch. So many people love this movie. That is my big mainstream play. I love this movie, and I think that this is really going to help me win this draft.
This is another one that people debate on about whether it's a Christmas movie or not. I say yes, but I can also see the other side of it.
I have never seen it, so.
Oh, that's right. We actually talked about Love Actually when we last had Katie on. We were drafting 90s rom-com characters. Mm-hmm. So Preston, you've had what, 6 months, and you still haven't seen Love Actually, huh?
I know. I had some homework and I dropped the ball pretty massively. I will watch it this Christmas season. I promise. So it is a Christmas movie? I did not know that up until
definitely a Christmas movie.
This very moment.
Christmas isn't like a necessary part of some of the storylines, but definitely of some of the others, I think. So I think it qualifies.
Katie, I hope you don't take offense to this, but when I used to be a little kid and I would take my report card home to my mother and there were like 3 glaring C's or D's on there, I got the same look from her that I just got from you. And it made me physically uncomfortable to watch you be so disappointed in me. I really hate it. God, I didn't like that.
As we were sitting here, I was really reflecting on, our friendship and how can it be so strong when my Venn diagram of experiences in life, which are 90s and 2000s rom-coms and Love Actually, you exist in no part of that. It's a fantastic movie. I honestly don't know how it ages if you've never seen it before, but
guess we'll find out.
You'll discover that you've been missing out on a lot of references. I think it's definitely a 90s movie. The climax happens at a Christmas concert. There are a lot of Christmas themes throughout for the characters, and it's certainly one that you start to see those clickbaity articles pick up the minute the clock strikes midnight after Thanksgiving. The Love Actually content machine just picks up.
Okay.
So,
yeah, definitely a Christmas movie. In agreement with you there. Okay. I was worried you were going to take this. I'm glad you didn't. It is one of my personal favorites, and it's short. I think we've taken only feature-length films to this point. This one is probably like 40 minutes tops. I am taking How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I hated the Jim Carrey version, which I feel like someone is going to take in this draft, and I will not be able to support you on that at all. Just letting you know in advance. But I love How the Grinch Stole Christmas. With oh my gosh, I'm blanking now on the narrator, but
I can't help
the guy, he does like he's Dracula, but I'm totally blanking. I'm gonna have Preston edit this part out, but
let's say it's Robert Downey Jr. and just move on, and who's gonna correct us?
Yeah, it's definitely not Robert Downey Jr. I think the Grinch is probably about as old as Robert Downey Jr. But Thurl Ravencroft, is that it? I'm gonna look it up.
That sounds like a name you just made up. That can't be a real
basically.
person. That's a Harry Potter character.
I was about to say you could be making up fantasy character names. And Preston and I would go, sure, sounds right. That's an excellent movie. I actually thought you were going to go for the Jim Carrey version, which I don't mind, but the animated version is very sweet. Daniel's list, very, very heavy on the nostalgia, despite the fact that he's already claimed that he is a nostalgia hater by not liking A Christmas Story. So far, his list, heavy on nostalgia.
Boris Karloff, by the way. I think Thurl Ravencroft is the guy who sings You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the name came from. And that is an iconic Christmas song, by the way, that we would not have without How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So,
absolutely.
I have a weird affection for the Jim Carrey version, but it's not like super high on my list. Like if I would have drafted that onto my team, it means I probably had a pretty bad go. Like a lot of stuff got taken. Basically my exact list got taken to get all the way down there, but I would probably take the animated version over the live action. But again, I have like this. It came out, I guess, when we were
a lot of weirdness
in that prime kid time. So yeah,
it's
but
like,
that's what makes it great. Is that it's so
like
absurd.
They sexualize the Who's. It's weird, and I have carried scars like throughout my life from that like I still don't forgive the movie for, to be quite honest. So maybe like that colors my opinion, but
why won't you let Christmas be a little sexy? It can be a little sexy if it wants to be.
Sure, I am all for sexy Christmas. It shouldn't be like a kid's Dr. Seuss movie, though, in my opinion. My humble opinion. Cindy Lou Who shouldn't be like super cleavagey and hot.
Well, to be fair, she's not the one who's like overtly sexualized, seeing she's like
it's her mom,
7 years old.
Right?
God.
It's
Listen, Christine Baranski can't
thank you.
help but be sexy in everything she's in. It's not her fault.
That's fair.
Exactly. Dan, it's the spirit of giving, my friend. Embrace it.
Giving
Let
what
go.
is my question. Anyway, Preston, you got back-to-back picks here, sir.
Well, to my surprise, my third S tier movie made it all the way back around. I'm
so
super happy. I'm actually like slightly concerned and now starting to second guess my decision because it wasn't taken. But to me, it's always been a great Christmas staple, and that is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. That is my top three are the three that I currently have drafted right now. I know that people voting at home may not feel the same way, but those are the three I watch every year before I watch anything else. And my in-laws or future in-laws love to watch this movie every single Thanksgiving, so it just naturally falls into the calendar, and we quote the lines to each other all year. It's a very like quotable one-liner movie, and I don't know, I have a deep affection for it. I probably like it better than Home Alone. I just was kind of I had a hunch that
you made the right
choice.
choice
We're
there,
gonna
for
take
sure.
it. Yeah.
I'll confess, I have never seen National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, so I have it on my list, but it was low because I could say almost no words about it. But I know that is a popular movie, so I think that's a great draft pick.
Yeah, I've only seen bits and parts too. I'm not like a huge Chevy Chase guy. There are really only a couple movies of his that I like, and I know they
I can't say I have a bunch of others that I watch of him either, but yeah.
I know that they kind of did like the vacation movies to death. There are like aren't there like a few others after this was like the second one after Family Vacation, but yeah. I mean I think it's a fine pick.
Pitch to us why each of us should see this movie tonight.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Christmas Vacation is, unless I'm like completely forgetting something here, is probably the oldest Christmas movie that tried to do Christmas real. You know, that didn't put all the emotion and perfect outcomes into it, but instead had the really drunk uncle show up and the grandparents who are kind of like half dead and can't hear anything, and like everything goes wrong, and the dad who has all these expectations they don't meet. It's the first like real Christmas story that now of course is imitated all the time when you have these family get-togethers and they talk politics and people throw things at each other. It's really great, and it still has like the classic feel to it of, you know, the reason for the season. So I'm a huge fan. I'm super happy to get this one. Also, I gotta mention there's two types of guests we have on the show, and it both occurs when they're unfamiliar with the content. And Katie just says, I'm not familiar, but I think it's a great pick. Most all of our other guests would say, I'm not familiar, so I don't think it's very good.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I feel like it's a nice kind of person that will lean into I'm sure it's great because you like it.
Katie knows she's going to win the draft, so it's very easy for her to be gracious, you know.
So she's just giving away compliments. That's true.
That's such a nice pick, Preston. Good for you.
a little pat on the head.
Yeah, makes up for your immense disappointment in me.
All right, Preston, how are you following it up?
That's a good question. I really didn't expect to be in this position, but I'm lacking a little bit on the nostalgia. So I'm gonna lean into it pretty hard, because a lot of my other movies on here don't have that kind of nostalgia factor. And I'm gonna take a Charlie Brown Christmas.
Oh,
I don't have much to say about it. Just like a nice nostalgic pick.
I have a lot of feelings about this, actually.
Well, I was raised in a pretty religious household, so watching a Christmas movie that actually mentioned like Jesus was a big plus for my family. So I think we watched it all the time, basically.
I couldn't have guessed that you live in a religious household when one of the 3 VHS you owned was The Passion
of the Christ. Yeah, I think it was on like 2 VHSs because it was so long. Yeah.
So I hate all Charlie Brown movies. Hate them.
Okay. All right,
I feel
calm down, boy.
I feel very strongly about this. Katie is shocked and appalled. I feel like Charlie Brown. I just feel so bad for him. He's like this miserable kid who everyone shits all over all the time, and he asks for so little, and I hate it. As a kid, I could not stand how horrible everyone was Charlie Brown, and like he tries to be this nice guy who does the right thing, and he feels terrible for like the shitty Christmas tree, and maybe part of me saw myself in Charlie Brown, and everyone just dumps on him all the time. And like, whereas the scene is like he's waiting for the Christmas cards, and like yet again, there's not a single Christmas card for Charlie Brown, and it breaks my heart. I hate it.
Wow.
So it sounds like Charlie Brown is so good that it makes you feel things that you're unprepared to
all the
talk
emotions
about.
are just so
out
real.
loud.
It's true.
Yeah, maybe you're onto
Stanley,
something.
just go to therapy and watch Charlie Brown.
Yeah, all the best art makes you confront a part of yourself that you weren't even sure was there to begin with, you know? You sound like someone who would go stare in front of the Mona Lisa and just start weeping uncontrollably. So, you know, I think it's good that we're starting to explore these things.
Yeah, we're getting deep on Drafted. I don't know, like, this is how I feel about every Charlie Brown movie, like Charlie Brown Halloween, Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, and it's, I don't know, it's like, it's the same punchline over and over. It's like, yeah, we get it. The kid, like, gets shit on all the time. His life sucks.
Again, one of the main reasons I took this one has to be because of the soundtrack. I think with the exception...
That's fair. Soundtrack's great. I will give you that.
I think the 3 Christmas soundtracks I listen to every year are Nat King Cole's, the Michael Bublé, sorry, I'm #basic, and the Charlie Brown Christmas soundtrack. And the Charlie Brown Christmas soundtrack is the one you put on when you're having people over. Mm-hmm. Because there's not words, so it's not going to distract people, and it's just wonderful, wonderful background music, and very subtle and just lovely.
Yeah, I think that this is an amazing pick for the soundtrack almost entirely. I think I've seen this movie a few times, and I've listened to the soundtrack thousands of times. I also think the idea, like a movie is powerful when an idea from the movie comes past the movie, and the idea of a Charlie Brown Christmas tree, like people know what that means. You know what that is. That's the wimpy little tree, and anytime you can get an idea to come out of the movie and have people be like, yeah, I haven't seen that weird movie, but I know what you're saying with that phrase.
Yeah.
You know that movie's like hit another level.
It's just like how at every Christmas, everybody does this. You have elf breakfast, where you make spaghetti with maple syrup and a lot of chocolate and Pop-Tarts. Everybody does it. I mean, we all know what that means when you say it's time for elf breakfast.
You know, Will Ferrell.
You say, Mom, I don't want it.
Will Ferrell threw up the first time they did that scene.
I don't doubt it. It looks disgusting.
Yeah, really awful.
Oh, I was going to say, I wasn't going to share it before, but I also found some celebrity trivia from some of these Christmas movies.
Yeah, hit us.
For the Jim Carrey version of The Grinch, he hated the costuming and the makeup so much that after the first time they put it on him, he kicked a hole in the wall of his trailer and refused to ever do it again for weeks.
Wow.
And they had to have some higher level conversations with him because he hated that makeup in that movie so much.
Jim Carrey is one of those people that kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, he is kind of scary.
Seems like at any moment he could just snap and oh no. Yeah.
I love the image of the Grinch pissed in like a celebrity trailer, just kicking the door out.
That is good. But yeah, Preston, I don't fault you for the Charlie Brown pick. I know people love it. It like holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts. So people, I think,
it's also not super high on my list. I just realized that I needed the nostalgia pick, and I was worried I was going to run out at some point.
Yeah, so this is just something I've carried with me for a long time. I needed to get off my chest, and I'm glad I have this platform to do it. Okay, I have one movie left in my I just kind of like have. It's not really a top tier. It's just movies that I watch every year. And this one I often watch kind of ironically, but also kind of not ironically. Earnestly is the word I'm looking for. And that is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I mean, absolute Christmas classic. This is from when there were like 3 channels on TV and there were no watching movies at home. You watched movies on TV, and it's from that era, you know, like it's classic Christmas. The claymation stop animation movies, there's like a whole genre of those that all came out at this time, and this one is the most iconic. My family loves to watch it with my mom, who grew up watching it and like adores it. I think it's probably her favorite Christmas movie, apart from maybe It's a Wonderful Life. And we bag on her while we watch it because Santa Claus is a straight up douchebag in that movie.
Yes,
like
the worst.
He is prejudiced and closed-minded, and he's awful.
He's the villain of the story.
Yeah, a true villain. And like the only reason he even comes around is for selfish motives. Like
Yes.
he never
'Cause
like
he's
sees the
gotta
error of its
come up with
ways.
a
Like,
solution.
oh right, I was a dick to you because you were different. That never happens. So like
No.
we kind of ripped the movie, but there's still something about it. I mean, Rudolph, is an iconic, probably the second most iconic Christmas character, and it's the music in this one is fantastic too. So I have to take it, despite its flaws.
This is a really, really good pick, and I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I actually think it leads into my next picks.
Perfect.
Which I wasn't going to take this early because I didn't think anyone else was going to take it. But in the spirit of taking the movies closest to your heart, I'm taking The Year Without a Santa Claus.
Ah,
The 1970s stop motion.
yep.
Classic's a strong word. I'm not sure if
It is a
anyone's
strong
seen
word.
it. I love this movie.
I have never seen this. What is
You
this?
only need to see one scene, and it is one of the greatest Christmas movie scenes of all time, and one of the greatest Christmas songs of all time. Katie, I'll let you take it away though. This is your pick.
Yeah, can you give me the pitch just like I gave you with Christmas Vacation? I want to hear it.
Absolutely. The Year Without a Santa Claus is weird. I think there's after Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer came out and was such a hit, I think the creators said, this is a win. It was like with Iron Man, and they created this stop motion Christmas multiverse and started to tell all these different stories within this same loosely shared universe of stop motion Christmas themes. This is one of them, where Santa Claus doesn't believe that anyone believes in Christmas anymore, and he's tired and he's a little sick, so he says we're not going to do Christmas. And so some of his elves and minions go down to try to convince people on Earth to help Santa believe in Christmas. Honestly, I could not go through more of the plot in detail because it is convoluted, and I've seen this movie a lot of times. However, the music in it is pretty good, and the best scene of the whole movie is when Mrs. Claus, a reindeer, a little boy, and some elves go to the snow miser and the heat miser who control the weather to convince the snow miser to make it snow on a warm town.
In
And they
Alabama, I
sing-
think, actually. I'm pretty sure it's in Alabama.
Yeah.
It's coming back to me now.
And they
I
sing-
know those characters in my brain.
The snow miser versus heat miser song, and it is
Yeah.
It's a
honestly
banger.
one of the best songs ever, and it's what makes this movie. It's
Yeah,
so
100%.
good. In college,
This is the dude who's got the his face is like ice.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's got, like, the icicles for hair,
the flame
spiky
face
hair.
guy. Yep.
Yeah.
sleeper
okay.
hit, cult classic.
Yeah.
In college, I went to a party with my now husband, and I made him dress up as the snow miser, and I
Amazing.
dressed up as the heat miser. Nobody got it.
I would
But
have.
darn it all, if we did not look exactly like these characters, and it's one of my personal costume peaks. I love this movie. Same as what Daniel was saying. We got to know these because they were just playing on ABC for my entire childhood. And this one is absolutely the best one, almost entirely for just that musical number, which is so strong that it
So
puts
good.
it on my list.
I'm Mr. White Christmas. I'm
I'm
Mr. Snow.
Mr.
Ba-dum,
Snow.
ba-dum.
I have seen that scene. It has never occurred to me to think about what movie it's in at all.
He's Mr. 10 Below. It's an absolute banger. I'm sorry,
Okay.
it is. And if you've seen the movie, you started singing the song in your head immediately.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna go watch that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of the movie is weird and frankly kind of bad.
That's
But
fine.
that scene is
I love
amazing.
weird stuff. I love weird stuff. I'm all for it.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Katie. What do you got
I
next?
was pretty confident I was going to get that movie.
For sure,
but
sure.
I'm still glad that I was able to bring it up
Me too.
and make my list a little bit weirder. I feel like I've got a strong enough front half that I can carry some weirdos back here.
Yeah.
However, this next pick, I've been thinking about this, and I do want a little sex in my Christmas. I do want it to be a little bit sexy, have a little
Yeah.
heat to it. And for that reason, I'm choosing The Holiday. For the express reason of Jude Law in that movie.
Well, I can't fault you for that. This is one that I've not seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
The Holiday, a mediocre rom-com, low-key predicting Airbnb, but Kate Winslet and Cameron Diaz switch houses for the Christmas season. Kate Winslet lives in a tiny town somewhere in the UK. Cameron Diaz lives in LA, and they basically switch lives. and fall in love with people in each other's lives over the
Mm.
Christmas break. It's fine. You watch this movie for Jude Law in glasses, and that's
It's
almost the
fine.
only reason, and I still highly recommend it. I put this on my list. I'm going to get a bank of female votes or male votes. Anyone who loves Jude Law, you know,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, they're going to pick my list because they've got young Jude.
If you don't love
Looking
Jude Law, you're
steamy.
lying to yourself.
Absolutely
This is true.
true.
The Christmas and pornography comparison we made earlier is starting to come back around, it seems.
Started to hit a little too close to home.
Yeah. All right, so I still can't tell from your description if I should watch this movie or if I should find some sort of condensed version or just look up the Google
I
image
think-
search results. Like, I'm not really sure.
It sounds like you should
It
watch
would-
Love Actually first.
Absolutely.
Well, that's certainly true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a fine Christmas-themed rom-com. It is an elevated version of all of the Christmas-themed rom-coms that now Netflix and all those other companies are putting out. But this was in an era when you could actually get real stars in those movies. So this was probably the last time Kate Winslet did something like this. Also, a movie in which Jude Law, I would say that any condensed version you see is not going to give you much, because what is so appealing about him is he is a good, consistent father in the movie, and they
Ooh.
somehow make that very sexy. So highly recommend The
Somehow.
Holiday.
What do you mean? It's the sexiest thing you can do.
Amen, Chris.
Oh, man.
True. So that's my next pick. I'm okay with getting a little weird here in the back half because I still think this is going to pick up some votes for me, and I've got that sex appeal between this and Love Actually.
Yeah, you definitely have sexy Christmas.
The sexiest Christmas.
You have the monopoly. on
Daniel
sexy
has the
Christmas.
oldest
You have the
Christmas.
market corner.
Katie has the sexiest Christmas. And I probably have, like, the newest Christmas, like the most 21st century.
The funniest
movies,
Christmas,
maybe?
I would
I don't
say.
know.
Preston
Yeah,
has the
I
funniest
definitely have the
Christmas.
funniest Christmas. Yeah.
Okay. Now I have no idea where to go with this. Absolutely no idea where to go. I just have like all these different movies scribbled down. You know what? I feel like I've already lost this draft, to be quite honest.
Aw,
So
come on,
I'm
bud.
going to take Happiest Season and keep the
Ooh.
Christmas rom-com going. I just
Great
watched
pick.
it this past weekend and loved it. It's great.
It was a great pick.
It's on Hulu. It's not like a classic movie by any means, but like as soon as I was done watching it, I was like, oh, yep, that's going in the annual Christmas list. Every year
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch Happiest Season. It's just
Do
great.
you want to passive aggressively take a dig at your conservative parents? Tell them to watch Happiest Season this holiday season. It's great. Tell them, hey, there's this great new Christmas movie on Hulu. Here's my account. Give it a little watch. Then give me a call. Tell me what you think. By the way, I need to throw this out here because some people very close to me do listen to this. I'm over exaggerating the conservativeness of my parents. They loved the movie. They thought it was fantastic. So I just want to get that out of the way. It was for jokes purposes only.
Yeah, we're gonna cut the addendum there and just piss off Preston's
okay.
family.
Yeah.
I am mad about this pick. This was on my list coming up next. This is a great movie. Solid plot. I don't really believe the fact that they get together at the end. I feel like Kristen Stewart probably could have cut her losses, but for the sake of Christmas magic,
Yeah.
I'll buy it. But overall, a wonderful movie. I'm a little mad that you took this one. I was hoping its recency would keep it further down the list for me to snatch up.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have taken it there, but there wasn't an obvious other one that I really wanted to take. And that one's
That was
fresh in
going to come up
memory,
next
so.
for me.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure where you're going to go, but it was definitely near the top of what I was about to go for. Lauren and I actually, similarly, when I was prepping for this, felt like we had to watch this because it's the talk of the town right now.
Yeah, the Twitter town.
She looked at me about halfway through, and I was like curled up on the couch, like grasping my own elbows, and she's like, "Why do you look like you're watching like a thriller movie?" And the thing is like I hate this genre of, making your future in-laws unhappy. Like, Meet the Fockers, Meet the Parents, physically cannot stand those movies. Like, it makes me unbelievably uncomfortable to watch. So, beyond that, I thought it was great. And if you like that kind of movie, please, it was really, really good. But, like, just cannot do that kind of comedy. I think it's probably, like Daniel said earlier, some part of some deep-seated thing that lies within me that needs exploring, but still.
You enjoyed it though, right? Despite that.
Oh, it was great.
Okay.
It was great.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to take your pick then, Preston. But what are your plans B and C here for your final 2 picks?
Well, I've got a lot of options left. I've actually got 7 movies on my list, and I only picked 18 because 18 is the entire number of picks. So I feel pretty good about that. I think I'm going to take a pass on The Nightmare Before Christmas, which I feel pretty bad about. But first of all, I don't watch it because it scares the living daylights out of me. So I think just to stay true to myself, I probably shouldn't take it. So the first one I'm going to take to buy myself a little time to think about the second one is one of my favorite rom-coms, full stop. And I understand that this movie is flawed. I understand that there's a lot of people that don't like it. I don't know why. I have a weird obsession with this movie, and it's Four Christmases. Vince Vaughn, believe it or not, is actually really good in this movie. He's actually great. It's actually a great movie. And it's another one of those like real Christmases where they explore like all the different types of things that are going to happen to you at the holiday season, not just the really nice spirit of giving and family growth kind of thing.
Isn't John Cena in this movie?
Yes, he is. And Katie, I'm very nervous about this because you're the rom-com kind of expert here. And I had this on my list, and I was thinking, I can't take this. Katie's going to judge me really hard. But I want to know.
I have actually only seen this movie once, and I think it's because it made me so uncomfortable with how real and unhappy they were. Like, all I remember is people seemed unhappy with each other, and I was like, this is too real. I do not come to rom-coms for this reality. These difficult relationship conversations, I'm out. So I've only seen this one once, and I think that a theme that's come up for you, Preston, is this real like authenticity, this almost like gritty Christmas, and I'm not here for it. So I've only seen that one.
I'm not
once.
either. I'm with Katie on this. Vince Vaughn had like this came in the Vince Vaughn era where he was like real into that. Like he made the breakup movie with Jennifer Aniston, which is like super cringy. For Christmas, the parts I've seen, I it seems fine. I don't think I would have taken it though, personally.
Okay.
I love it for you though.
It's very strange.
Yeah.
No, it's very strange. It's like I want it on my list, so I figured I would just promote it for everybody
have to speak
else.
your truth.
Yeah. So this next one, that time I bought myself actually didn't help me at all. There's so much I could take here. Gosh. All right. I'm just gonna go. All right. I'm gonna go weird. I'm gonna go weird here. God, this feels so bad.
How weird.
Lean into it. Lean into it.
I'm gonna take the Polar Express.
Oh.
I really think this movie's very strange.
Oh no, it is.
But I enjoy watching it a lot with my family because it is very strange. But it has a couple nice Christmassy moments. Tom Hanks plays all the characters. So that's cool. So why not give it a try?
This movie is not good.
Oh,
it's not a good movie. Preston, I'm sorry. I have a very the whole family, the Prentice family, has a very deep connection to the Polar Express. Every single Christmas Eve, still to this day, I'm 27 years old, and my parents still read The Night Before Christmas. My dad reads it, and then my mom reads the Polar Express. And my sister's name is Sarah, and the sister in the Polar Express, the book's name is Sarah. And then at the very end, like, the sister can't hear the Christmas bell anymore because she doesn't believe in Santa and Christmas anymore. And so my mom, like, cries every single time she reads it. So we have, like, this very intimate family connection with the book, which we all love. And the movie is just weird as hell and totally abandons the entire spirit of the entire book. It's horrible. It's creepy. There's, like, that weird ghost stuff. I don't get it. I really don't get it at all.
This was a period in movies when animators, it's almost like this movie came from the animators who said, guys, look what we could do with animation.
I know. Mm-hmm.
And they're like,
we
a tech trust
demo.
you. Let's do it. Let's do it. And then everyone watched it and everyone went, run the other way. Awkward moonwalk away from that situation. And we've never gone there again.
Yeah.
So I was on Thanksgiving Day. We were having a nice conversation over dinner, and I don't know how this came up, but the idea with my future father-in-law came up of the Uncanny Valley, which, as younger folks, I'm assuming both of you are aware of what the Uncanny Valley is. He was not aware, and the immediate thing that came to my brain was Polar Express. If you're not aware what the Uncanny Valley is, it's essentially when you make a CGI face, a computer-generated face, look so unbelievably good, but there's something wrong with it, and you don't know what it is, that it looks completely unhuman. Like, you'd rather have something that looks less human than it is because it looks so wrong to you, but you can't quite put your finger on what it's something about with the way the nose moves or something. You can't really tell. And that is the entirety of Polar Express. It's just demonstrations of the Uncanny Valley over and over again.
Yeah, I can't believe you picked it.
When I think Christmas, I think human, but not quite.
Not quite. I feel pretty bad that I picked it. I'll go over in the second half of our show what I could have taken instead, but
you really should have done that.
I don't know. Maybe the people who vote on this won't actually listen to the episode. Anyways.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, let's move on. Let's try to leave the Polar Express behind us and get to a better, happier place. There are still so many movies on my list, and none of them truly deeply resonate with me. There are a couple that resonate a little more than others, but I think I have to take some iteration of A Christmas Carol, because Christmas Carol is like determined most of our Christmas traditions. Like, there's actually another movie called The Man Who Invented Christmas, which is all about Charles Dickens and how he wrote the story, and how, like, most of the things we do for Christmas are from A Christmas Carol. So I feel like I have to have some
he
sort
just
of
made
iteration.
it all up.
I see panic on Katie's face, so I'm gonna try to nail the Christmas Carol version that she wants. This is a total shot in the dark, but I feel like the one that people are gonna like the most is the Muppet Christmas Carol. So that's the one I'm taking here. Oh, yes, Katie absolutely devastated, which is exhilarating to me. I still think it's a moot point. I mean, I feel like Katie won the draft with the first two picks. But so yeah, I'm taking a Muppet Christmas Carol as my final pick.
That's clearly what I should have taken. It was near the top of my list, and I went a different direction. But I just watched it again a couple nights ago to prepare for this draft, and I don't want to downgrade your pick because I think it's great, and I think you'll win a lot of votes for it. But I remembered it being better than it actually turned out. It was in some ways just kind of weird and not as funny as maybe I remembered, but still like an absolute classic. And I would say the best version of the Christmas Carol, assuming you can't go to like a theater or something and see it acted by a bunch of people.
This is such a tough pick. My household is bizarrely into Muppets, which maybe now that I'm going through this podcast and talking about how much I love 70s stop motion maybe makes more sense than I thought.
It's adding up.
Yeah, it seems like it.
But I have such a soft spot for Miss Piggy and just all of the Muppets, and this is an absolute classic. It's a perfect late round draft pick. It's one I was really, really hoping to get. Yeah. And the minute you mentioned Christmas Carol, I knew I was toast. I knew I was absolute toast.
It does feel a bit of a steal at this stage in the draft.
One of the things that really turned me off about it, based on how I remembered it and then how it actually was when I watched it, the movie's about an hour 15 or so, and legitimately an hour of that is just supremely depressing. Just very,
That's
very
a Christmas
sad.
Carol, man.
Well, yeah, I don't want that, though. I don't want that. Like, the Christmas movie sadness should come when the main character is realizing his faults. The main character realizing their faults is the whole movie. That's the whole story of A Christmas Carol. Yeah. So from beginning to end, it is just deeply, deeply sad. But there is like the middle part where he meets the spirit of Christmas present. Very happy, very joyous, uplifting. And as Daniel said, where we get most of our Christmas traditions from. And then the end, when he realizes the error in his ways, is obviously very good as well. But most of it is just super, super depressing.
Christmas Carol, any version of Christmas Carol, you're watching for the payoff at the end. You know, to be fair, Katie, I think some people might have the same criticism of It's a Wonderful Life. A lot of that is like pretty devastatingly sad. So maybe you were saved that you don't have both movies in your list there.
You know what's a perfect movie, though, is It's a Wonderful Life, but with Muppets. I mean, listen.
How have we not had that yet?
A Christmas Carol is a downer story, but when you're watching Muppets do it, you get it. It's a little bit more
it's a little bit better.
It's a little bit funnier.
And so they crack a couple jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was watching it with my fiance who had never seen it and did not remember the details of A Christmas Carol super well. We had seen it live on like a date maybe like 5 years ago. But Tiny Tim comes up with his little crutch and his little sling, and in the Muppet Christmas Carol, he's played by a tiny Kermit the Frog, and it does not make his passing any easier. And she's like,
oh no.
She just leans over to me while we're watching. She's like, they're not going to kill Tiny Tim, right? They wouldn't do that. And I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't have done this. But it's just so gut-wrenchingly sad. I still think it's a good pick because A Christmas Carol is classic. And like I said, people remember it being better and more joyous than it may actually turn out to be, but it's still great.
Okay, Katie, it's time for the final pick of the draft. Who you got?
Well, I'm in a tougher position than I expected to be. Honestly, I would not be feeling so uncomfortable had I not made the fatal error of not realizing that Home Alone 3 was not set during Christmas primarily. I was really counting on that being a sleeper pick for me to pick up. So it wouldn't be my top pick, but I think a strong next option for me to add here that will pick up some votes is actually Nightmare Before Christmas. I debated going between this one and Home Alone 2, which I just rewatched the other night and is also a great Christmas movie. But I think if I'm just going for votes here on my last pick, I've got to go for Nightmare Before Christmas. The music is lovely. The visuals are lovely. It's one of Tim Burton's most famous movies. It's an absolute classic. And as we talked about, it is a Christmas movie. So it's not one that I hold near and dear to my heart the same way I do with some of my other super weird animated picks, but I think this is the pick to round out my draft.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I debated taking it instead of Muppet Christmas Carol. It's definitely one Preston should have taken over the Polar Express.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had more regret
really
over a pick. I think, yeah, seriously, like
more than
because it was right there in front of me. It's not like I missed it. It was right there in front of me, and I just decided that people would view it more in the spirit of Halloween than Christmas, but I don't know that that's right. I definitely view it more in the spirit of Halloween, but I don't know that's
I
right
do too,
for the
but
mass population.
I think it's both. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I think it. You can't really argue that it's not a Christmas movie. Like even if it's more a Halloween feeling movie, I think you have. I
totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, and I think it will feel like a niche. Like there will be people that vote for you just because you have it. So it's a fantastic last pick, I have to say. So that brings us to the end of the draft, and Katie's film lineup looks like this. She has It's a Wonderful Life, A Christmas Story, Love Actually, The Year Without a Santa Claus, The Holiday, and A Nightmare Before Christmas. I have The Santa Claus, A Miracle on 34th Street, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Happiest Season, and A Muppet Christmas Carol. And Preston has Elf, Home Alone, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Charlie Brown, Four Christmases, and The Polar Express. We'll be taking a quick break and be right back to break those movies down in just a second. Okay, we are back for the second half. The first thing I want to ask, as I always ask, Katie, I want to ask you first. What was the movie or movies that you really wanted to take or kind of had, thought you were going to take, but then ended up not being able to for whatever reason?
Yeah, as I look back, I really think Happiest Season and Muppet Christmas Carol are the two steals that you got late in the draft that I think we were all really hoping that we could get. I think that I underestimated those as picks. They weren't high on my radar. I kind of thought I could wait for them, and those are the two I'm looking at with some longing late in this draft.
Well, I love to hear that. Preston, how about you? Maybe something that didn't get picked that you had wanted. You said that you regretted your Polar Express pick more than any pick you've had in the history of the show, which is astounding to me. But
I think so.
if you could replace it, what would you replace it with? That's still available.
Well, I'd obviously replace it with Nightmare Before Christmas, but
Yeah.
if we assume that was taken, which at the time it was not, my ideal draft was snagging Happiest Christmas, but of course you stole that, Daniel. I had two on my board that weren't taken. One was purely so I could talk about it in this half of the show. There is no universe where I would have taken this. And that is Pee-wee's Christmas special. Because I watch it every year. And if you are, like, not into the Christmas season, you just want to watch something that's, like, really strange and, like, really plucked out of time and makes no sense, go for that. It's nice and short. It's condensed. You can say you kind of celebrated Christmas, quote unquote. It is so unbelievably weird, but would highly recommend.
Speaking of weird, I do want to mention I do have two other bizarre stop motion movies.
Oh yes, please.
That I love, and like Preston said, would never pick because then it winnows my potential audience down to whoever's up late watching ABC 5 years ago. But Santa Claus is Coming to Town is another one from that stop motion multiverse. I couldn't tell you a lot about the plot, but the music in that movie is so good, so catchy, it's just a delight to watch. And then the weirdest one is Rudolph's New Year, I believe is the title. It's where we got the concept of a baby new year from, and there's literally a baby who represents the new year. Wow. And he gets lost in time and ends up being a weird, trippy 70s fantasy story loosely related to Christmas. Can't recommend enough. Would never in a million years draft it in this
I've never
draft.
even heard of that movie. That's incredible.
Yeah, me neither. I was also looking at this genre that is relatively new of the Mar Vista production company movies that are just, they know what they're doing. They're making like very budget, very not very good Christmas movies that people are just obsessed with. I thought really hard about what was the best one of these because I've seen a ton of them.
Are these like the Hallmark movie Christmas movies?
Basically, yeah. If you think there's a better one, please tweet at this and reply to it because I will watch it because we watch all of these all December long. I think the best one that I've probably landed on is the Princess Switch, where Vanessa Hudgens meets an identical twin and she plays both characters, and one of the characters has just probably the worst British accent you've ever heard, but it's okay because it doesn't actually even take place in Britain. It takes place in a fictional country, so maybe it's just that country's actual accent that she's doing. So it is an absolutely wild trip, and the Princess Switch 2 just as good. And Vanessa Hudgens,
princess. There's another princess.
How is there a sequel to the Princess Switch?
Because Vanessa Hudgens plays a third character because I guess she like lost a bet or something.
There's triplets
and is now playing 3 characters in the same movie.
My God.
Both of those movies are good, and also the end of the Princess Switch 2, I won't spoil it, but it ends with a wedding, and the Christmas Prince, which is a completely different movie, is at the wedding, sitting in the audience waving at people.
Great,
and just
great
the
callback.
Idea that this is like the Marvel extended universe,
yeah,
of really crappy Christmas movies. God, if you have not dug into the genre, A Christmas Prince, then a Princess Switch, great place to start.
The Princess Switch.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be real.
That multiverse is complex.
Yeah, that shouldn't be real.
The multiverse is very complex.
That's like you're watching a movie that's parodying those movies existing, and they make up the Princess Switch 2. Like, the fact that it's real is blowing my mind.
It's amazing. There are a ton of good ones. If you're looking for more recommendations, I'm chock full of them. A Christmas Calendar, another great one I'm just going to throw out there.
It's basically a GoFundMe for Vanessa Hudgens' career.
Yeah, good.
For all those movies.
Please, God, help.
They all star Vanessa Hudgens. Multiple characters in each one, apparently. For me, I had 2 that I strongly considered taking, even though I have not seen them, and that is Bad Santa and Krampus. And I strongly consider them because they fill such unique niches that I feel like there's not really any other Christmas movies that quite hit those, and I'm sure there are people that love them, so I consider taking them just for the single movie voters. And then a personal one for me is All of the Other Reindeer, which was made by Matt Groening, who made The Simpsons and Futurama, and stars Dan Castellaneta, who's Homer Simpson, and Drew Barrymore, and like lots of other voices that you would recognize. And it's a little short, and they're like 35 minutes. That's pretty funny. One that we watch every year. But I figured that was probably a little too obscure for me to actually include.
I'm excited to have a whole new list of movies and short features to go give a shot. I have not heard of that one either, so I'm a big fan.
Yeah, you might have a hard time finding that one, honestly. We have it on DVD though, so let me know if I need to send it up to you, and you can watch
that
it.
That one rings a bell of one that I remember hearing was pretty good. I think that's an excellent movie that is a good Christmas movie to watch, but maybe it's not going to make it into a draft like this.
Yeah, definitely recommend it, especially if you're looking for something to mix up your holiday viewing a little bit, nice little change up. Okay, I mean, do we need to discuss what the worst pick of the draft was? I mean, this is unanimous, right?
No,
I mean, not for me.
No.
Yeah, I
Okay.
I don't think that I agree with you, Daniel.
Oh, okay. Well,
I also have a different one.
Oh, I
even though
thought,
I hate
thought
myself.
Preston himself was going to agree. Okay, well, let's hear it. What's the worst pick of the draft, Katie?
I think that me picking the holiday when I did was the worst pick in this draft.
Wow.
Because I think I picked it too soon and I missed out on some other back-end movies that I really needed.
This is historic.
I think I could have picked Muppet Christmas Carol sooner and still gotten the holiday later.
Yeah, I think that's almost certainly true.
And I wasn't looking at my list strategically, and I think I picked a movie that was not on either of your radars too soon, and I think it made my overall team weaker than it could have been. So I think that is actually, to me, the worst pick. I think that Preston, I think there's a secret Polar Express hive out there just waiting to support Preston.
Out yourselves, and then unsubscribe from the pod.
I'm going to tweet at Tom Hanks. Like, Tom Hanks, please.
Tom Hanks doesn't even like that movie, surely. There's no way he's proud of that movie.
Using Katie's logic, I actually think there's a different one. And I don't know where, Katie, the Santa Claus was on your list.
Yeah.
But it was not super high on mine. I feel like taking that in the first round is not a great value. My pick was definitely bad, and I'd say it was my worst pick of the draft. But having your worst pick of the draft be the last one is honestly like not super unexpected. Like, it's pretty bad. Don't get me wrong. Should have done it differently, but not as terrible as it could have been. But the Santa Claus for me was somewhere around C tier. I don't know why. I think I'm just a little frustrated with what Tim Allen turned out to be.
Oh,
and
you can't let that color
movie
your
a little differently.
You can't let
I know it's hard, but it's hard. You know, I exist on the internet. I know that he's a piece of shit. It's hard for me to watch that movie and not just be thinking about that.
He's also not that bad. I mean, he has not hit like Kevin Spacey levels of unwatchable.
Well,
he still seems like he's a Republican or whatever, but still seems to be a fine guy.
I agree with you, Preston, that Daniel probably could have taken that later and stolen one of your picks, like Elf or Home Alone, and gotten one of those kind of big three or four earlier to really anchor his team.
Yeah, I mean, I should have, in hindsight, taken, and I felt like I probably should have taken Elf with the pick and then taken the Santa Claus in the second round. But to say the Santa Claus was the worst pick is outlandish to me. I mean, like it was on all of our boards, right? Like no one else.
But it was on C tier.
But no,
there were literally 13 movies in front of it for me.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, well, one of them should not have been the Polar Express, my friend. Okay, the Polar Express should not have been on anyone's draft board.
It was behind it.
I have like 25 possible picks here, and the Polar Express was not one. It's just like a creepy movie. And Four Christmases wasn't on my list either.
I know that one was just for me. That was for good old me.
Yeah. Well, I won't begrudge you for that. But yeah, I mean, like I took the Santa Claus three picks too early, I would say. But I think it's unfair to say that makes it the worst pick. It's great. It's a great Christmas movie. Okay, who won the draft? Katie, you have some regret in your pick. I mean, you picked your own pick the worst, which has not happened on the show since the Game of Thrones draft, many months ago when that happened. But are you still taking your own list of Christmas movies as the ones you want to watch?
You know, I love to pick my own list. You know, and I know that can be a tradition on this podcast. But I'm gonna pick Daniel's list. You know, I think that it's well-rounded.
Yes.
It doesn't have the highs that my list has. It doesn't have some of the lows that Preston's list has. But I think that it's well-rounded.
Can I ask if I would have taken
literally any movie but the Polar Express?
If I had just taken Nightmare Before Christmas instead of Polar Express, would I have won in your mind?
My challenge there is Four Christmases. I have an aversion to that specific kind of realistic rom-com.
Realistic cringe, yeah.
I have a bad taste in my mouth for that one. Unlike one that I didn't bring up was Family Stone, but that's a different kind of cringe. But I think Daniel's, particularly because I do love Santa Claus. He picked it early, but that's a real classic, and a lot of the other ones on his list are just that nostalgia play that he had, I think, is making my favorite list.
I have to say, I mean, I always want our guests to pick my team, obviously, because it makes me feel good. There's no one whose pick of my team has meant more to me than Katie's just now. Katie picking a Christmas movie draft and taking my team. Even when I lose the poll, it will be fine. Like Katie's vote means more than any Twitter poll. So
I would have also traded the vote to win Katie's vote too. I feel so sad. I'm so disappointed.
That kind of just made my whole Christmas season, if I'm being honest. Preston, what about you? Who are you taking?
I mean, despite my shortcomings, the top 5 Christmas movies on my list are the Christmas movies I watch every Christmas season. So I feel like not taking mine is disingenuous. When I was coming into the draft, I thought about what my best 6 would be realistically. I know I'm not going to get every single classic because you guys are going to take some, but my best 6 would have been swap the Polar Express for Happiest Season, and I'm there. So I'm definitely taking mine just on that, and I'll watch the Polar Express when I'm like, high out of my mind or something.
I feel like that would make it worse. That would heighten the heebie-jeebie vibes.
Very scary. In second place, I feel like it's super unfair. I almost don't even want to say it because I haven't seen some of these movies. Mm-hmm. It's been ages since I've seen the animated How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Also, same goes for the Rudolph. And also, I have never seen Love Actually, The Year Without Santa Claus, or The Holiday. So I feel like I don't have enough context to really make a pick here. So I'm going to avoid doing that.
If Preston sees some Christmas movies, he might change his mind on which list he's picking here.
I don't think I'm ever going to change my mind off mine. Honestly, Elf, Home Alone, and Christmas Vacation, I don't know. It's good. Those are 3, not just of my favorite Christmas movies, my favorite movies, like full stop.
Yeah, Elf and Home Alone, I will give you. I mean, they're 2 fantastic ones. They were truly elite tier. I am curious to see how National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation plays. Also, on Twitter, when you guys do go to vote at DraftedPod on Twitter, kind of let us know, like, what are you thinking? Because we were debating during the break, are people going to vote because they feel like they have to watch all 6 and will have to suffer through a couple movies that they really don't want to watch in order to watch a good one? Or are they thinking more like, oh, well, I'm just not going to watch, The Polar Express. Sorry to keep picking on that one. But I love Elf and Home Alone. It's like I'm going to take that and just not watch the ones I don't want to watch. We didn't really establish that clearly in our rules, so I think it's maybe up for interpretation. I think I do have to take my own. I mean, I pretty much single-handedly went for personal nostalgia with all my picks. So obviously, most of these movies mean a lot to me, except for Happy Season is too new to mean a lot to me, but I loved it. And Muppet Christmas Carol doesn't personally resonate much. Katie, I have to give second place just because of how much I love It's a Wonderful Life. I'm almost tempted to take hers just for It's a Wonderful Life because that's how valuable I think It's a Wonderful Life is in the Christmas movie pantheon. But I think at the end of the day, I do have to go with mine. But like I said, it comes down to the Twitter vote ultimately. So go over there at DraftedPod on Twitter and hit us up on Facebook as well, facebook.com/DraftedPod, and email us at draftedpod@gmail.com for ideas for next season. This is the end of our special episode run. So now we got to start planning for season 2, which we plan on getting to you early next year. Isn't it wild that it's almost 2021 already?
Thank God.
It's blowing my mind. Thank God, but also what happened to this year? It didn't happen.
If I can be a content creator shill for just a second,
sure.
We have some very spirited discussion in the replies of that tweet. But because of how Twitter works now, if you quote tweet that stuff, it's going to help us. So I would ask that when you submit a vote in that poll, quote tweet it out there because the larger sample size is really going to yield a better data set, and that's just good statistical
That's true. We do get way more listens than Twitter votes. Our Twitter votes are always pretty small. But yeah, any kind of promotion you can do on Twitter or Facebook or whatever would help the show immensely, especially going forward for season 2. But Katie, thanks so much for joining us for this Christmas movie draft. It was an absolute delight as always.